Farron and Brian, in 3 minutes. We're back on the Real News, Farron and Brian. We are covering the news that the mainstream puppet press dare not report to the people, and we're going to continue with the news this hour. This past week, feds declare Tennessee gun law invalid. It is yet another example of the federal government running roughshod over the states. This is reported by InfoWars July 18, 2009. Last month, the state of Tennessee's General Assembly passed House Bill 1796, the Tennessee Firearms Freedom Act, which states that any firearms or ammunition manufactured within the state and legally owned and kept within the state by citizens are not subject to federal law or federal regulation, including registration, due to the provisions in the 2nd, 9th, and 10th Amendment to the United States Constitution. But according to Assistant Director Carson W. Carroll of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, the U.S. Constitution is little more than a piece of paper, as George W. Bush so famously deemed it during his reign as Decider-in-Chief. On July 16th, Carroll dispatched his agency's officials to make a response to the law passed in Tennessee. The TFE asserts that federal law supersedes the Act and all provisions of the Gun Control Act and National Firearm Act, and their corresponding regulations continue to apply. It will be interesting to see how Tennessee responds to this. Once again, Brian, we've been reporting that the states are trying to assert their sovereign rights and get out from under the oppressive tyranny of the federal government with regards to gun rights and to actually several other pieces of legislation. But here, as we had reported some months back, Tennessee was trying to get it passed through their House to get themselves out from under the Federal Reserve, the mandates of the federal government with regards to gun rights. Now we see the BATF is fighting back. Your thoughts on that? No surprise, I'm sure.
Yeah, no surprise at all. And I expect that, especially with like Montana, all the legislation they've enacted, specifically stating if it's within the state that the federal government has no jurisdiction whatsoever any longer.
Yes, sir. All of the states that dare to try to assert their sovereign rights, we will see the federal government coming down on them and try to put a stop to this immediately, and this is the beginning of that.
Virginia Tech shooter psych doctor hid mental health records for Sing-Hyu Cho. New revelations about the mental, quote, treatment of Virginia Tech shooter Sing-Hyu Cho are surfacing today after the surprise discovery of his mental health records in the home of the former university psych doctor who treated him. These mental health records, which have not yet been made public, have been missing since the shooting took place. Dr. Robert C. Miller, we now know, took the records home and secretly kept them there, avoiding telling police about their location. They were only found recently during a document discovery phase of a pending trial. The fact these records were taken from the university, then hidden in the home of the psych doctor who treated him, and then were not even found by the governor-appointed commission, seems almost unbelievable. Parents of the shooting victims feel the same way. Deceptions come to mind in my first response, said parent Susan Grimes in an AP article. It gives me the impression, what else are they hiding? What information is in these records? Asked parent Lori Haas. The words that come to mind are a cover-up, collusion, obstruction, said parent Mike Pohl in a Washington Post report. His son was killed in the incident. I'm spinning. Who knows what else could be in these records, he asked. In 2007, when the university was conducting an exhaustive search for the records, Dr. Robert C. Miller claimed he didn't know where they were. Virginia State Police are now investigating whether a crime was committed by Dr. Miller, removing the records and hiding them in his home. But this isn't even the most shocking part of the story. Dr. Miller was part of the incident response team. Through documents acquired through the Citizen Commission on Human Rights, found that Dr. Robert C. Miller served as a substitute incident commander for the response team dispatched to deal with the aftermath of the April 16 shootings. This information is confirmed through Dr. Miller's own resume, in which he lists the incident under the heading Administrative Consultation and Leadership Experience.
That is pretty interesting.
So this is just one more in a practically, endless line of shooting incidents here in the United States, massive shooting incidences, which are directly tied to some sort of psychological treatment in which, in most cases, there's some type of medication being issued. If you go over all these incidents, you'll see the types of medication and use. Often, the patient suffering from some kind of withdrawal from this medication, and this is all documented.
Yeah, when we've had circumstances of these mass shootings, just about in every one you have reported on the mental health of the shooter, and it always comes back that they are taking a whole litany of psychiatric drugs, and then you don't see a lot of that covered in the mainstream press, so it's very interesting. We've got just a couple of minutes before we go to this break. This was reported this past week by the Freedom Medium, July 19, 2009. Obama signs executive order barring release of his birth certificate. We've been covering this, well, prior to him even being elected, and of course the story won't go away. On January 21st, 2009, his very first day in office, Barack Obama implemented and signed into law Executive Order 13489. For those of you who can't take the time to read it, here is a section that applies. Section 2, Notice of Intent to Disclose Presidential Records. When the archivist provides notice to the incumbent and former president of his intent to disclose presidential records pursuant to Section 1270.46 of the NARA regulation, the archivist, using any guidelines provided by the incumbent and former president, shall identify any specific materials, the disclosure of which he believes may raise a substantial question of executive privilege. Now, for all of you who commented on the previous articles, you know that President Obama and his birth certificate have been a huge story that apparently will not go away. So I found it very interesting. Day one, first executive order blocking the release of his birth certificate.
Man.
Just amazing. So, it's went all the way up to the Supreme Court. Nothing's been done. Personally, I don't think this will ever turn into much of a story, do you?
It reminds me of what Richard Nixon said, if the president does it, it's not illegal.
Well, we're going to be covering a lot more on executive orders in coming weeks and where that power comes from. Next week, our guest will be Bob Chapman, the international forecaster. We haven't had him on in a couple of months with what's happening in light of the economy. I think it'll be very interesting.
The international forecaster.
Yeah, and you made a great point last week when you said we were talking about the TV was telling everyone the economy was getting better. Barack Obama did that this past week, too. We might get to that this hour. But skyrocketing unemployment, you said, is not a sign of a recovering economy. And I thought that was good. I was watching the tapes back. I thought that was a great point. But Bob Chapman will be with us next week, and we will get his thoughts on what has transpired, because we've not had him on, 2 months? We missed July with him, I believe.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And we will be going to Washington, D.C. this coming weekend for some interviews with Virginia Fox, hopefully some others. So hopefully next week we can bring you some more information on that. And we're going to be shooting some videos, putting them on our YouTube channel, and hopefully everyone will find that interesting. We're going to, next segment after this break, we're going to go into a swine flu update. We want to get that in each week because it's just more and more information. The crystal ball is becoming more clear to those that are looking into it. The dates between September and October are drawing nigh. We'll be back in 3 minutes on The Real News. We are back on The Real News with Farron and Brian, your weekly broadcast where we discuss the news that the mainstream press does not report. This is your weekly flu pandemic update. This week was no different. Yahoo News today, Atlanta in a disturbing New projection, health officials say up to 40% of Americans could get swine flu this year and next year, and several 100,000 could die without a successful vaccine campaign and other measures. The estimates by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention are roughly twice the number of those who catch the flu in a normal season. So once again, as we are reporting, they have peered into their crystal ball. They have decided exactly